Welcome to Honestly Rated, and today we'll be talking about your favorite dude, Voodood. Voodood's another Skylander that comes out of Spyro's Adventure that was forgotten, and today we're going to be seeing why by taking a look at his overall gameplay and design to maybe he was so good the first time he never needed another, or maybe he was so bad that they just physically couldn't fix him. But before we jump into all of that, let me tell you about Voodood's somewhat sad lore. Early on into Voodood's life, he was a pretty brave warrior, especially for the people that he came from, and during that, he wanted to prove his worth by going to the Cave of Trials. While he was in there, he was lured by something with a real bright light, which was being his axe, inside of a skeleton of a dragon where the heart should have been. When Voodood decided to leave the cave, he decided to take the axe and even the dragon's head that he wears on top of his head now, and practically became the warrior and leader to the people that he lived with, and defended them for a while. But sadly, when the darkness came, he was practically the last one left, and so with no one else there, he decided to join the force of Skylanders to protect anybody else from evil that did him and his tribe wrong. One last thing I'd like to say is that if you want to see your Skylander Honestly Rated next, all you gotta do is leave it down in the comments. I do like to pick off of them, and if you don't know which one's already done, there is a playlist in the description that shows every single one that I've done, so if you also just want to see more, that's where you can go too. And if you want to stay up to date, these come out every single Saturday, but if you really want to stay up to date and you see yourself coming back to these a lot, subscribing would help me out the most, and it'll make sure that you'll stay up to date completely. So, with all that said and done, let's go check out Voodood and see what he can really do with that axe of his. To start us off, we have the Axe Reaver and the Zipline Axe. The Axe Reaver is a pretty simple combo-based move where you can keep pressing the square button to keep swinging your axe in front of anybody that comes near you. But if you really want to finish it off with a bang, all you gotta do is hold square, and you'll end up throwing your axe down and electrocuting anything that comes through. And it has a pretty big hitbox, so you can even use it against somewhat decently sized groups, I say roughly 3 enemies, and you'll probably hit them all. And, that leaves you time to run away, or maybe just do it again. It really depends on what you're feeling. But it's nice, it's good, it doesn't do a lot of damage right now, but at the same time, we are a Spyro's Adventure character, so we're probably going to get some damage upgrades down the line. Then for our second move, it's kind of more of a support-based move, and that is being the Axe Zipline. The reason I say it's more support is because Voodood as a character is a very scrappy, somewhat decently paced guy that really likes to be in people's faces. So, to kind of add to that flavor right there, we get this Axe Zipline where if you hit an enemy, you will literally fly towards them, and you can start knuckle and buckling. You can start punching shit and kill them, hopefully. And with it, I think it's pretty good. I like it as like a comparison for it, and again, it fits his character very well. The only problem I have with it right now is that, well, sometimes with the bigger groups, you end up kind of going after the wrong guy, because there is like a somewhat auto lock where they're like, hey, I think you're trying to go for this guy, even though I'm trying to go for the guy like all the way in the back. So sometimes that kind of hurts. It isn't too far ranged, and especially like even with walls and stuff, I don't know how beneficial it could be to like really run away with it. I really use it more up close, but nonetheless, it is a good move to pair up with our first couple moves that we have here. So yeah, I enjoy it. Then for the next two, we have the Magic Tripwire Bomb and the Weighted Axe. Weighted Axe is just added damage, like I said, that we're probably going to get for his axe. And now it's doing up to 46, which again, is a pretty good amount of damage to have, which with a semi-fast fucking speed to kind of hit enemies with. So, pretty cool. But let's talk about the real meat and potatoes about this, and that is the Tripwire. This is what I personally believe to be Voodood's best move for many reasons. It's practically very spammable, it hits many enemies at one time, and to even make it even better, it even causes that electrocution type stance where they kind of get stunned for a little bit, and they also have like this weird, I don't know if it's a glitch, I don't know if it's just something that's not very well televised by the game, but there's points where when an enemy hits it, they'll kind of be more frozen and just kind of stand there and not run at you, and that's very good. Voodood is not a guy that can get overwhelmed at all. If he does, he's kind of fucked in a sense. I find it really fucking hard to fight with him if there is a load of enemies. So if you can get him stunned and just kind of stand there and just kind of leave him to the side until you can kind of get some things killed, it is very nice. Now, they don't stay stunned forever. Eventually, they will just kind of move on their own, or if you hit them, they'll probably just kind of snap back to reality, be like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to kill you, and they'll just come back at you. But nonetheless, I definitely think the Magic Tripwire Bomb is probably one of Voodood's best moves, and it really kind of helps them solidify getting to kill things at a far range. Obviously, you place it right next to you, but as you run away and stuff, you can just kind of leave it there. It'll eventually explode on its own, and if you try to place another one, it'll also explode, so you can kind of just use it as like a remote bomb of sorts. I'm telling you, this magic tripwire bomb has a lot of uses and is very nice to his arsenal. It really helps just kind of put the pause on people. It is a good move nonetheless, and hopefully upgrades can really make this thing shine. Last up on the base path, we have the Tripwire Reserves and the Extended Blade. These are upgrades to moves I already have, so we get one extra Trip Mine, which I forgot to even mention, does the same amount of damage as our normal Axe Swing, which is pretty good in that sense, and I honestly use this more than the Axe Swing just because it's a lot more of a safer move. It is slower than an Axe Swing, but if you get that electricity off, you can kind of just keep spamming these bitches down, and no one really can get you, so yeah, I really enjoy it. Having two is pretty nice. Then the other one being the Zipline Axe having a further reach, which, in fairness, I see what they want to do, but at the same time, with the auto lock that happens, it doesn't work too well. So, whatever. This one's very much a pass. So, like, if I never saw this in my life, I'd probably still be the same with the axe. I use it at not too far of a range because you really can't. You really can't. But with it, that is the whole base path. Voodood for right now is okay as a character. I'm having a little bit of problems with him and his overall slowness. He isn't too fast with his moves other than his just normal axe, and because of it, there are points where you can kind of get yourself kind of trapped. If there's a lot of range units in the back, it's very hard to deal with them, and even though, again, you have like the whole zipline axe and maybe try to get you closer to those units, it's hard when there's bigger amount of enemies because, you heard the fucking point like already 3 times, so I'll save it for later when the whole review happens at the end, but let's just go on to the paths and see if they can maybe boost them up a little bit. Onto Elementalist path, which we're going to develop our magic abilities, quote unquote, with the Roadblock, Tripwire, and Electric Feedback. I actually do enjoy these two moves. I don't think they're too big of a thing, actually, except for that Tripwire, because it gets even longer, but I do enjoy them. Again, the long-gated Tripwire is actually a really good one. I really do enjoy it, just for the reason of, I, again, enjoy the Tripwire a lot. It hitting a even bigger basis is super nice. And then for the Electric Field one, I think it's pretty cool. I do enjoy when you get hit and other enemies get hit because of it. It is always a pretty decent upgrade. It usually ends up not being too big of a thing when you especially have enemies do a lot of damage with you when you go into those bigger difficulties. But I definitely think when you have like just a normal casual playthrough, I think an upgrade like this is pretty nice to have because you'll probably get hit a bunch. And honestly, Voodood is that type of guy to get hit a bunch. So it really does make sense to just kind of have like a prickly shield type deal here. Last up, we have the Electro Axe. This allows us to hit an enemy, and any enemies that are around it will get electrified, and it's actually a pretty decent upgrade. I find stuff like that pretty good. I like it when there's just things that are going to take random damage. It's especially really nice for chompies and even roaches, just because, I won't lie, Voodood has a little bit of a problem killing with these guys. I don't know why, but he just doesn't have that big of a hitbox when it comes to his axe. He might be able to, like, extend that bitch, but his, like, normal attack is just not too far reaching. It is, again, very close cornered. So, yeah, just being able to hit up many things and just dealing a little bit more damage to things that might be around them is pretty good, especially if you, like, maybe try to stun enemies with your tripwire and stuff like that. But at the end of the whole path still, there's still something about Voodood that is not clicking for me, so let's go into the bottom path and maybe see if maybe that's where the gold is, Onto the Marauder path, which is going to deal with our axe. And, we have the first one called Shaman Style, which is kind of an obligatory Spyro's Adventure style move where we get a little bit of a combo list. So, to start it off, we have an Axe Spin with O, and it's probably the best one here. I definitely think I use this one the most. It knocks back enemies, it does last a little bit long, and it even blasts them back pretty far. I like the distance on that thing. And the only thing I can really say about it, it's like more the negative is like, it is slow in the sense of like, if you get them stuck in this, and maybe let's say you did a little too early, or you have like a lot of enemies coming at you and you don't hit them all at once, you're probably going to get hit. If they're lining up a hit for you, you better say sayonara, because you're going to get hit, right? And then the other one we have is just Magic Axe, which I definitely think is the lamest combo that Voodood has, and that allows him to just kind of shoot like his tip of the axe just outwards, which really shows that this guy could have probably even more impeccable range with just his base attack, yet he doesn't do it. I don't know why. That's kind of annoying. But yeah, he just kind of shoots out the tip, and it's okay. Like, it does solid damage, but at the same time, you kind of have to do the whole combo base thing. It's also kind of slow. Like, if you're really in a dire situation and there's no enemies running at you, I guess you can use this thing, but I don't see myself actually using it like in a combo base type of style. It's just kind of meh. Last up, we have is the Legendary Blade and the Hyper Wire. Both of these just add damage to the zipline and to the Axe Weaver move, and that's all fine and good. I definitely think they're pretty boring moves to end on, especially for these to be the last two on paths. Again, I get it, Spyro's Adventure, verse 1, they had to kind of get their flow, but still, for Voodood, I definitely think he needed a little something. He needed to be a little bit quicker on, like, something, but yeah, it's fine. Damage upgrade's nice. I definitely think it benefits the Axe a lot more, though, because with the Tripwire doing the same amount of damage, I would end up using the Axe to not the highest degree. So, yeah, adding damage, cool, whatever. On to the Soul Gem. Last up we have here is the Impervious Tripwire, which honestly is a pretty great thing to have onto the Tripwire, which is allowing it to bounce back projectiles, because that's honestly Voodood's biggest weakness. Projectiles. When you're such a close cornered character that isn't able to freely move too much, especially when it has to come to hitting enemies, it is very nice to make sure that any of those rain units that are just shooting shit at you get a little bit of their own medicine. Now, it's not guaranteed to hit back, right? It's not guaranteed to even hit the enemy that it came from. But if it does hit it, that's just an added bonus. It's just nice to make sure that there is a nice guard around you, to make sure you're not getting hit by bullshit and anything that's flying at you. It's very nice and cool. And even an added on bonus is like, if you take that top path, this thing is super long, so you could even guarantee it even more. So yeah, with it, I think it's a good Soul Gem. But at the same time, even though I've been kind of nice to Voodood, there's something not clicking about the guy. There's something about him that I just don't like. So I'm going to review everything again and come at you with the rating. Alrighty, so after taking a look at Voodood and all of his moves, I am ready to give you my honest rating on him, and that is going to have to be a solid 2 out of 5. I don't think Voodood's archetype is good for Skylanders in the slightest. I think that's what really kind of fucking was nailing on my head, and that is like this super grappler, like heavy, like I'm going to come get you type character. Doesn't work in Skylanders very well. He's very rush heavy, very much supposed to just kind of be in people's faces and kill them kind of quickly. And obviously, as games go on, things have more health, things are just able to take more damage and stuff like that, right? But I don't think that's where I'm like trying to come from. I think it's just like he can't hit many enemies at once. His Tripwire can do somewhat good at that, which is like hitting multiple enemies at one single time. But at the same time, it isn't fast enough, so if you have like enemies in front of you and behind you, or even to the right or left of you, like you end up missing a certain amount, and it's not fast enough where the point you start getting hit. And all these hits eventually end up for you just dying, right? It's a lot of chip damage to Voodood that eventually at some point you're just kind of like, oh, I'm gonna die. And you just can't bounce back from that. I definitely think some upgrades that should have been here instead of like a lot of those damage upgrades was some type of defense upgrade or some health upgrades for Voodood, because I definitely think that would help them in this character. He already has a somewhat decent amount of health, but I think just adding defense and just making sure that he can take reduced damage would absolutely benefit him so much more than adding more damage and damage to his axe, which I definitely think if you just gave him a little bit more, he could maybe do even better. Like, I don't know. I think Voodood is honestly a pretty complicated character, but I definitely think putting him in the 2 part kind of fits for me. I don't think he is that great of a character, but I also don't think he's bad. I actually kind of like his upgrades, especially for a character that came around like Spyro's Adventure. I definitely think a lot of the upgrades actually were pretty unique for a sense. Like the top one, I definitely think a lot of those were unique, where you can hit enemies and enemies around you get hit and stuff like that. I think that's pretty cool. But I just, as him as a character, just doesn't stick a landing. And you guys can tell me in the comments maybe what you think of Voodood and maybe what some of your gripes, and maybe I can kind of form a better opinion around him. But I definitely think that's where I stick the most for him. It's just like his archetype as a character doesn't fit well in a game where there's a lot of enemies and there's a lot of things trying to attack you, usually at one single time. So, yeah, that is my honest rating on Voodood. Thank you to everyone who made it to the end. If you saw yourself enjoying this video and you want to see more, again, there's a playlist in the description that has every single one that I've done. And if you see yourself wanting to come back to these, subscribing would be, the most appreciated. Voodood, again, is a very complex character. I would like to know what you guys think about him, and maybe what you feel about him. Maybe there's some things that, some hidden Voodood tech that's a little bit better that would maybe make him feel better. Or maybe you could tell me your gripes about him. It would be pretty cool. But, yeah, Voodood's just a weird character. And if you remember me doing that Imaginator run with Voodood, I promise you, again, I will do it at some point. I haven't forgot about it. I will finish it, because, I don't leave things unfinished. But it will be at some time. Maybe even next month. Maybe January, new year, new me. Or I guess old me, because that would be an old thing I did. But, it will come back at some point. But, again, other than that, though, Thank you guys for watching all the way through, and I hope to see you and everybody else in the next one. Peace.